I was just an onlooker who thought the whole phony Heir charade was over. I never imagined it would blow up into a media circus. The police sirens I heard during dinner ended up screaming toward a splash of blood by the campus lake, forcing the university to hold an emergency meeting and expel them both. But the truly tragic part was the girl I once saw as my future wife. After being blackmailed and publicly shamed, she took a knife and went after the man who destroyed her. Torn apart by desire and fear, she couldn't even tell who had pushed her over the edge first. My dad bought me a ridiculously luxurious mansion, but it was just too much. It completely clashed with the artsy, indie vibe I'd going on at school. I took one look at it and left it empty. A month later, a freshman joined our club and claimed that very mansion was his. He announced, with a completely straight face, that his dad was the richest man in the world. Staring at this short, chubby kid with a face full of acne, I couldn't help but wonder what was going on. I'm the president of a university's art club. Art is about talent, and the last thing I wanted was for people to think my work was just bankrolled by my family. That's why I never told anyone my dad, Martin Harrison, is literally the richest man on the planet. I was perfectly happy keeping my identity a secret, enjoying my life as a campus heartthrob, and dating my amazing girlfriend, Ava. But one day, a freshman with a bad case of acne was ushered into the club, surrounded by a crowd of excited members. The second he walked in, he announced his dad was the richest man in the world. My first thought was, did I miss a headline? Then he pulled out his phone, showed everyone a picture of my dad, and held it up next to his face with a smug grin. "Aren't we spitting images of each other?" he asked. I was floored. I immediately called my dad and asked him when he'd had another son. Dad swore up and down that I was his only son, and he sounded so sure of it that I believed him. "Your dad is really Martin Harrison?" I asked the new kid, skeptical. "That's right. I'm his only son. The name's Charles Baker," he replied, full of himself. A surge of anger shot through me. Does Martin Harrison even know you exist? But I decided not to expose him right away. I was curious to see what this guy was really after by pretending to be me. I gave the club officers a nod to let him stay. And just like that, Charles Baker was officially a member. He immediately suggested, "We should all come to my mansion for a barbecue this weekend." Another member, Alex, was practically bouncing with excitement. "Yes, let's do it. Let me see your student ID. I need to get you in the system," I said, holding out my hand. He hesitated for a split second before handing it over. I glanced at it. Place of birth, Cleveland, Ohio. I frowned. I thought the richest man in the world was from New York City. "Why does your ID say you were born in Cleveland?" Charles shot back without missing a beat. "My family's originally from Cleveland. We just moved to New York recently." "Cleveland? My family has been in New York for generations." He was clearly betting no one would bother to dig deeper. "My dad is notoriously private and keeps our family information on lockdown, which, ironically, is what gave this guy an opening to spin his lies." "So, you were saying something about a barbecue at your mansion this weekend?" I asked, looking up from the registration form. A flicker of pride flashed in his eyes. "Yeah, my dad bought me a place in the Crestwood Estates. It's close to campus, so I can use it whenever I want." My stomach dropped. I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly which mansion he was talking about. Could it be the one my dad had just bought for me? I'd seen it once about a month ago. Sure, it was huge and impressive, but it was way too big for one person, and the decor was so gaudy it hurt my eyes. It just wasn't my style, so I left it vacant. And now this guy was claiming it was his? The club members immediately swarmed Charles. "A mansion owned by the richest family in the world. Can I come, Charles? Please." "Me too." Charles played the generous host, smiling broadly. "Of course. Everyone's invited." The room erupted in cheers, the energy electric. I just smirked to myself. That mansion has facial recognition and a fingerprint scanner at the gate, and my biometrics are the only ones in the system. I couldn't wait to see how Charles planned on getting everyone into his place. At lunch, I met up with my girlfriend, Ava Miller, at the cafeteria. Ava was on the student council. She came from a modest background, but carried herself with an elegance that was all her own. She was ambitious, driven, and, I thought, completely devoted to me. We'd been together for 2 years, and I was planning on telling her who I really was soon and introducing her to my parents. "Hey, Ava," I asked casually, "have you heard anything about Martin Harrison's son?" She looked up from her food, a surprised look on her face. "You mean that freshman, Charles Baker?" I nearly choked on my food. Ava quickly patted my back. "You're such a kid, choking on your food like that," she said, a mix of concern and exasperation in her voice. I couldn't believe even she had heard the rumor. This put me in an awkward position. I thought for a moment. I decided it was best not to reveal I was the real Harrison heir until after I'd exposed this fraud. Otherwise, she might think I was just trying to one-up him with some crazy story of my own. "Yeah, that's the one," I said. "I've never even met the guy." "That's true," Ava nodded. "We're together all the time. If you knew him, I'd know." It wasn't like she ran in those circles anyway. I decided to drop it. After she finished eating, Ava said she had to run and left in a hurry. I had a free afternoon, so I took my time finishing my lunch. Suddenly, someone pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. I thought it was Ava coming back, but when I looked up, it was Charles Baker. "So, James, Ava's your girlfriend, huh?" Charles said, plopping into the chair with an arrogant smirk. "I'm kind of into her. Why don't you step aside? Name your price." I was raised to be humble, to never be flashy or arrogant. As the actual heir to the world's biggest fortune, I'd never said anything so outrageously conceited in my entire life. And here I was, hearing it from a complete fake. I gave him a cold smile. "All right, I'll bite. What's your offer?" "You're a junior, right?" he said smugly. "When you graduate, I can get you a job at Apex Global." He held up 7 fingers. 7 figures a year. "That's it." I laughed. "So you're saying you've got nothing to offer me now? Just some empty promise for the future?" Charles didn't seem to find himself ridiculous at all. He adopted the tone of a wise elder. "James, you need to think long-term. Don't get hung up on the small stuff." His condescending attitude was starting to get on my nerves. I looked him up and down, my voice cold as ice. "You keep claiming to be a Harrison, but I don't buy it for a second." I saw his pupils shrink for a fraction of a second before he regained his composure. "You'll see this weekend when I take you to the mansion," he said, jutting his chin out. "Anyone can have a mansion," I scoffed. "Doesn't make you Martin Harrison's son. For all we know, it's a rental." I stood up and walked over to him, flicking a strand of his ridiculously overstyled hair. "Nice hair," I said with a smirk. "Too bad it's thinning. Guess you can't afford the good conditioner, huh?" I grabbed his hand. "Wow, look at all these rings. But your palms are so calloused. They feel like a manual laborer's." I leaned in. "Does the Harrison heir have to do his own yard work?" I pinched the hem of his designer shirt. "This whole outfit, the shirt, the pants, the shoes, all top-shelf brands. You take good care of them, but they just don't fit you. The whole look is off." I lowered my voice to a whisper. "You didn't steal them, did you?" Already on edge, the word steal clearly hit a nerve. "Are you insane?" he yelled, then stormed out of the cafeteria. I couldn't help but laugh. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually had. Ava didn't come from money. When we first started dating, she was shy and timid, a skinny girl with a tan from working outdoors. I helped her out, introduced her to my friends, and bought her nice clothes, jewelry, and other things she couldn't afford. Watching her blossom from that shy girl into a confident, radiant woman who was popular with everyone and secretly crushed on by half the guys on campus gave me a huge sense of pride. I was sure Ava's heart belonged to me. There was no way she'd fall for a short, unattractive fraud like Charles. Even if he were the real deal, I was confident she would still choose me. So I didn't let his little power play get to me. The clown was going to expose himself this weekend anyway. It wasn't worth my energy. That night, a video of our confrontation in the cafeteria was posted on the campus forum. The title read, "Genius versus the Prince. Vote for who gets the girl." The post was immediately pinned, and the votes started pouring in. To my complete shock, Charles was winning by a landslide. I scrolled through the comments. "Given the choice between a hot guy and not having to work for 30 years, I'll take the 30 years. Another one read, "Talent means nothing when you're up against that kind of money." Was everyone really that cynical? I suddenly felt ridiculous. All the effort I'd put into hiding my identity, just seemed like a huge joke. Besides, were people blind? His act was so obviously fake. How could nobody see it? I kept scrolling, determined to find someone with common sense. Finally, I did. A user named Chloe wrote, "Based on Charles's supposed age, the timeline for Mrs. Harrison's pregnancy doesn't work. Her public schedule was packed that year, and photos from every event show no signs of pregnancy. She even attached a collage of photos from that year as proof. This girl was sharp. Her analysis was clear and logical. I gave her comment a like. As for everyone else, I didn't really care what a bunch of strangers on a forum thought. I just went on with my day. I went to the student union building to find Ava. As I got to the office, I saw Charles cornering her. I was furious. This guy was using my family name to hit on my girlfriend. The nerve of this phony prince. Being a thief isn't enough for you. Phony prince? Now you're trying to be the other man." I said coldly. Already on edge, my words hit their mark. His face darkened instantly. "Who's a phony, James? Need me to repeat myself?" I sneered. "You're short and plain. What gives you the right to act like you're some kind of royalty?" I assumed she was annoyed by him and that she'd be on my side. I couldn't have been more wrong. Ava actually stepped in front of Charles, frowning at me. "James, stop it. Chaz isn't what you think." Chaz. A minute ago, she barely knew him, and now they had nicknames? Not what I think. I stared her down. "Then what is it exactly?" "I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but when it comes to relationships, I have zero tolerance for games. My girlfriend can be from a humble background, she can be a little naive, but she can't play me for a fool. If she betrays me, it's over." Instantly. I was willing to hear her out, but she kept trying to change the subject, to get me to leave. "I'll walk you back to your dorm. We could talk on the way," she whispered. Halfway across the quad, I pulled my arm away and pointed back at Charles, who was still standing there. "We don't need to go anywhere. You can explain right here." "He's not going anywhere, and we've got all the time in the world." Ava opened her mouth, but just stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Seeing his chance, Charles had a smug look on his face and took her hand. "Why embarrass yourself, James?" he said, looking like he'd already won. "The truth is, I told Ava how I feel, and she's given me a chance to win her over." Ava looked miserable, but she didn't pull her hand away. And on that same wrist, she was wearing the birthday present I'd given her, a watch that cost tens of thousands of dollars, one I'd had my cousin pick up for me in Europe. If I had to describe how I felt, it was like being struck by lightning. It wasn't even about being heartbroken over Ava. It was two things I just couldn't stomach. First, I had completely misjudged her character. She was the type to flip on a dime. Second, she kicked me to the curb for a short, plain-looking guy whose scam was so full of holes a child could see through it. She hadn't gotten a single thing Charles had promised, and she was already switching sides. If she'd ever bothered to look up the price of any of the gifts I'd given her over the last 2 years, she wouldn't be falling for a pile of empty promises. I turned and walked away. I knew, with absolute certainty, that Ava and I were done. I don't compromise on relationships. My girlfriend can be poor. She can be ordinary, but she can't be two-timing me, holding my hand while making eyes at someone else. Ava ran after me, stumbling over her words as she tried to explain. "James, listen to me." Charles asked if he could pursue me. What was I supposed to say? I just told him it was his choice. I didn't say anything else. Don't be mad. I'll never say yes to him. I only love you. She grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go, dragging me from the admin building all the way to the academic hall. "Let go of me," I said, almost laughing at the absurdity. Did she really think I was a child who'd forgive everything after a few sweet words? I was done talking. But Ava knew I would never physically push a girl away, so she suddenly moved in to kiss me, grabbing my hand and pressing it to her waist, refusing to let go. I tried to push her away, but she just clung tighter. We were at a stalemate when someone walked out of the building. The person came right over, grabbed Ava's wrist, and with one swift, clean motion, twisted it and pushed her away from me. "Ow! Who the hell are you?" Ava yelped, falling to the ground and clutching her arm. The girl turned to me. "James, are you okay?" It was only then that I got a good look at her. She had long, neat hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Her face looked familiar. It was the girl from the campus forum, the one who defended me. "Chloe, I blurted out. She looked surprised that I remembered her name, but she nodded. She glanced at Ava, who was now crying on the ground. What's her deal? I looked at Ava, who immediately turned to me, pleading. James, please believe me. I can explain, I promise. It was all a misunderstanding. Can you just ask this stranger to leave? A chill ran down my spine. This two-faced woman. Had she always thought I was some kind of idiot she could easily manipulate? I wasn't about to let her off the hook. If she wanted to play games, she had to be ready for the consequences. I pulled out my phone and started recording her as she sat there crying, trying to win me back. Ava, we've been together for 2 years, I said, holding the phone up so she was in frame. I do still have feelings for you. So, I want you to say what you just told me again on camera. State clearly that Charles is pursuing you, that you have zero interest in him, and that you will never, ever date him. If you do that, I'll pretend none of this ever happened, and we can stay together. So, Ava, do you dare? I pushed the phone closer to her face so she could see her own tear-streaked, pathetic reflection. Her face flushed, then went pale, then flushed a deep crimson. I knew exactly what was going through her head. Her makeup was a mess, her carefully crafted image of elegance completely shattered. If she recorded that video, she could kiss her chances with the Heir goodbye. In fact, any guy with an ounce of self-respect would want nothing to do with her. But she couldn't bring herself to give up the golden opportunity she thought she had, especially not when the real Heir was standing right in front of her. There's nothing left to say, Ava said, turning her face away. Let's just break up. Finally, the answer I expected. I scoffed and stopped the recording. Get lost, I said coldly. Ava, probably too ashamed to even look at me, kept her head down and ran off. Honestly, I wasn't nearly as calm as I looked. For a second, I was tempted to just lay all my cards on the table. To tell her, you idiot, I'm the real gold mine. You were one step away from everything you ever wanted, and you just threw it all away. But I held back. I wasn't going to blow my cover for a moment of cheap satisfaction. I just told myself it was better to see her true colors now, before I got in any deeper. I turned to thank Chloe, but a gust of wind blew some dust in my eye, making me blink. She's not worth it, James, Chloe said softly, thinking I was tearing up. Losing you is the biggest mistake she'll ever make. I was touched. I'd pegged her as being tough and aloof, but she was actually very perceptive. I know, I said. The very next day, Ava and Charles were officially a couple. I saw them outside the art building, Ava clinging to his arm while a crowd of students whispered and stared. She didn't seem to care at all. Charles was walking with a swagger, a smug grin plastered on his face. James, we meet again. The phony prince and the cheater. I shot back. A perfect match. Every time I called him a phony prince, his face would twitch. I found it amusing, so I twisted the knife a little deeper. Was it worth it, phony? All this effort, just to steal my girlfriend? His eyes flickered to the watch on Ava's wrist. He sneered. You didn't appreciate her, but I do. I know what Ava's worth far better than you. Great, I thought, smirking to myself. I couldn't wait to see the look on his face when this all blew up. In that case, I'm really looking forward to that mansion party this weekend. Charles looked like he was about to say something else, but suddenly, an arm linked with mine and a soft body pressed against my side, pulling me toward the academic building. I looked down. It was Chloe, the girl from yesterday. What are you doing here? I asked, surprised. Chloe blinked. Just passing by. Didn't want you to look like you were losing, so I thought I'd lend a hand. She didn't have to spell it out. When you run into your ex with her new boyfriend, the person standing alone always looks the most pathetic. She was helping me save face. I nodded her. Thanks, Chloe, I said quietly. With everyone watching, I let her lead me away, her arm linked in mine. It was the art club's meeting day, and the main lecture hall was packed. I had called a mandatory meeting for all members because I had a major announcement to make. Apex Global was formally inviting the art club to select 50 members for a month-long, all-expenses-paid internship at the Artisan Village, a new arts and culture hub, to study its creation and development. The story of the Artisan Village actually started 2 years ago. When I was elected president of the art club my freshman year, I was so excited I called my dad to tell him the news. That same afternoon, the university received a massive donation from him, earmarked specifically for the art club. If I hadn't begged him not to, he would have flown in to present me with some honorary president award just to publicly cement my position. Later, my dad funded the construction of a massive arts and culture complex on the south side of the city, which he named the Artisan Village. It attracted over 2,000 fashion and design companies, and hundreds of the world's top designers set up permanent studios there. Since I wanted to keep my identity a secret, my dad had the company sign an official talent pipeline agreement with the university. The official story was all corporate buzzwords like university corporate partnership and fostering a hub for creative talent. Ever since, the university has organized an annual trip for art club members to study and train at the Artisan Village. Over time, everyone just assumed it was a standard part of the university agreement. No one knew that I was the one who personally selected every single candidate. It had nothing to do with an official agreement. Once everyone was settled, I began reading the list. From the fine arts department, Laura, Sophia, and Daniel. From industrial design, Jessica, Angelo. After reading all 50 names, I announced the students I just called will meet at the main gate tomorrow at 10 a.m. The bus for the Artisan Village leaves then for your month-long internship. The students whose names I'd called erupted in cheers. An internship at the Artisan Village was a massive opportunity, a golden ticket that would open doors for them after graduation. I closed the list and was about to go over a few details when one of Charles's cronies, Alex, shot to his feet. "This is totally unfair, James," he shouted. "You're just picking your friends." Accusing me of only picking my friends was complete nonsense. First of all, as president, my first rule is to be fair to everyone. How else could I expect to lead a club full of the brightest students at this university? And second, I have my own reputation to think about. The Artisan Village is my family's project. All the executives there know me. If I sent a bunch of my incompetent friends, I'd be the one who looks like a fool. Before I could even respond, other members started defending me. "What makes you say James is being unfair?" Yeah, everyone on that list is incredibly talented. Most of them are seniors who really need the internship experience. You're a freshman, you don't even know how things work here, so stop trying to cause drama. Alex shrank back, then immediately shoved Charles forward, nudging him with his elbow. "Charles, this is ridiculous," he whispered. "Why does James get to make all the decisions?" After our earlier confrontations, Charles was already spoiling for a fight. He seized the opportunity. "He's right," Charles announced. "One person shouldn't have all the power in this club. I propose we hold a new selection." I didn't even bother to look at him. The Artisan Village is an apex global project, isn't it? I'm pretty sure the final say on who gets an internship there comes down to what the Heir wants. The color drained from Charles's face. He realized he'd overplayed his hand and quickly backpedaled. "My dad is running the company right now. I don't interfere with corporate decisions. Choosing a few interns is interfering?" I asked calmly. "Well, if anyone else wants an internship, I guess they'll just have to ask the Heir directly." At that, all of his cronies' eyes lit up, and they turned to look at Charles expectantly. I had to hide a smirk. He had been well and truly hoisted by his own petard. I ignored Charles's dark expression and finished giving instructions to the internship group, announced the rest of the semester's schedule, and dismissed the meeting. After the meeting, Chloe asked if I wanted to get dinner. My first thought was, wait, is she into me? I was hungry anyway, so we decided on a sushi place just off campus. We were halfway through the meal, and I was waiting for her to make a move, but she just kept making small talk about the weather in our classes. Finally, I just cut to the chase. "Do you have a crush on me?" Her expression froze for a second. Then she nodded. "Yeah, for 2 years." I was a little stunned. 2 years? Why didn't you ever say anything? She looked down, her usual confident energy gone. "Right when I finally worked up the nerve to tell you," she said quietly. "I found out you were with Ava." "Oh," I said, feeling a pang of sympathy for her. But I'd just gotten out of a relationship and wasn't ready to jump into a new one. I was trying to figure out how to let her down gently. But before I could speak, she looked right at me. "Don't say no yet. Just hear me out, okay? Her gaze was intense. I'm a sophomore in the business school. My family's well off. My parents are cool. This isn't some fleeting crush. I've liked you for 2 years, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to change. I was at a loss for words. Hearing her lay it all out so honestly was touching. Maybe it's true what they say about rebounds. I was hurting, and here was someone offering genuine warmth. I was grateful, but I still had to say no. I started, Chloe. She cut me off, her expression tightening. You don't have to give me an answer right now. Just give me a chance. We could just try it out, see if it works, she asked, looking up at me hopefully. I suddenly realized how charming she was. Thinking back, every time I'd run into her, I'd ended up feeling better. What was the harm in trying? Okay, I said with a smile. All right then, girlfriend. I'm all yours. I got back to my dorm, still smiling about the shocked, sly look on Chloe's face. A second later, my phone rang. It was my dad telling me I had to go on a blind date. You want me to what? A blind date with who? There was a pause on the other end. It's Catherine Morgan's daughter. You used to call her Luna when you were little, remember? You two were inseparable in preschool. Hold on, where did this come from? I was completely baffled. Are we bankrupt? Is this some kind of strategic marriage to save the company? Honestly, it was the only explanation I could think of. Of course not, my dad said quickly. It's just your grandfather and her grandfather sort of arranged for you two to get married when you were kids. My head throbbed. What century was this? An arranged marriage? No way. I'm not doing it. We're not asking you to, he said. But Catherine brought it up again, and our families go way back. I couldn't just shut her down. Just do me this one favor. Meet her once, and then we'll tell them you two just didn't have any chemistry. I hung up, my headache even worse. It seemed like I had no choice but to go, but I was sure I could figure out a way to deal with it. The next day, I borrowed my roommate's wild punk rock wig, threw on the most obnoxious outfit I could find, and took a cab to the meeting spot. I showed up 30 minutes late on purpose, but to my surprise, she wasn't even there yet. After another 10 minutes, I saw a girl in full goth attire sauntering toward me. Her entire look screamed, "Don't even think about messing with me." I suddenly had a very bad feeling. She walked right up to me, wearing dark sunglasses. "Rocky," she said. My heart started pounding. "Luna?" There was no way she was actually into this insane look, was there? Before I could say a word, she ripped off my sunglasses and wig. What the hell? I stumbled back, half expecting her to throw a punch. But then she said, "James, it's me." I looked closer. The goth girl was Chloe. Once we were settled in a coffee shop, she explained everything. It turned out Chloe was Catherine Morgan's daughter. Just yesterday, she had told her mom that she was finally dating the guy she'd had a crush on for years. Her mom was very supportive and trusted her daughter's judgment. But then, Mrs. Morgan remembered the old childhood engagement her father had made with my grandfather all those years ago. Chloe's family had moved to Chicago years ago, while we stayed in New York. Our families drifted apart, and no one ever took that old arrangement seriously. But her mom felt they needed to officially close the book on it. So she cooked up this plan for us to have one blind date, just to confirm we weren't interested. As long as we both said there was no spark, the old engagement would be officially canceled for good. Since her mom knew we were in the same city, she set up the date. The whole situation was so absurdly coincidental that I just had to laugh. Chloe, however, was thrilled. "See," she said, with a look that screamed its fate. "I told you we were meant to be." Just then, my phone rang. It was Simon from the design department. "Hey, what's up?" I answered. Simon spoke quickly. "James, we're at the Artisan Village, but there's a problem. The staff here says the list of interns they have doesn't match the one we submitted. The spots for some of the animation and design majors have been swapped out for a bunch of freshmen, Alex, Luis, all of Charles's friends." The implication was obvious. Charles had tampered with the list. I immediately remembered seeing him and Ava in the department office when I dropped off the final list yesterday. It had to have been them. They were bold enough to do it, even knowing the office has security cameras. I could see his plan clearly. He figured that since it was an official university program, the staff at the village would just accept whatever list they were sent. He assumed the students who got kicked off the list would be too intimidated by the Harrison Heir to complain. It was a huge gamble, and one he was about to lose spectacularly. I hung up the phone and laughed out loud at their stupidity. They were literally asking for it. I made one phone call to the internship coordinator at the Artisan Village. Less than 2 hours later, Charles's friends were on a bus back to campus, escorted by Mr. Davis, the manager in charge of the partnership program. Mr. Davis marched them straight into the art department office, right in front of the dean, and explained exactly how the official internship list had been forged. Alex and his friends immediately threw Charles under the bus. When I got to the office, Alex was practically in tears. "Mr. Davis, we didn't change the list. We just asked Charles to help us get a spot." He looked indignant. "Charles is the prince of Apex Global. His dad is Martin Harrison." Mr. Davis recognized me instantly, but before he could blow Charles's cover, I shot him a look. Not yet. I still wanted to see how he planned to get into my mansion. Mr. Davis got the message and cleared his throat. "I don't personally know the Harrison heir," he said formally. "But regardless of who is involved, I trust the university will handle this matter with impartiality." The dean nodded profusely, promising a full investigation, and respectfully saw Mr. Davis out. They pulled the security footage from the office, and the truth became crystal clear. The person who had physically altered the list was Ava Miller from the student council. The next day, the university issued a formal notice. Ava received a major demerit and was stripped of her position on the student council. As for Charles, since he hadn't physically changed the list himself, he managed to avoid official punishment. But the rumors that he was a fraud were now flying all over campus. He spent the whole day hiding in his dorm, but he refused to back down, insisting he was the real deal and promising everyone he would prove it once and for all at the mansion party. Ava also came forward and took all the blame, trying to protect Charles. All she got for her trouble was the scorn of the entire campus. Everyone said she had no shame and would do anything to suck up to him. Ava, who was used to being popular and admired, couldn't handle the ridicule. She locked herself in her dorm, hoping her pathetic act would earn her some sympathy from Charles. Little did she know, her dream of marrying into wealth was about to be completely obliterated. The weekend finally arrived. A huge crowd of students, all curious to see if Charles was legit, gathered to see the so-called Harrison Mansion. Charles was in his element, proudly leading the massive group toward the gates of the Crestwood Estates. "This is it," he announced, pointing at the magnificent structure. "The mansion my dad bought for me." When they saw the sheer size of the place, even the most adamant skeptics began to have doubts. Maybe he wasn't lying after all. Gasps of awe rippled through the crowd. "It's enormous. This is what real money looks like." Ava showed up too, looking smug and triumphant, as if she owned the place. I'd brought Chloe along to watch the fireworks. I leaned over to her and whispered, "That gate only opens for my biometrics. I can't wait to see how he's going to handle this." The crowd watched as Charles swaggered up to the gate, ready for his big moment. I expected him to use the fingerprint scanner or the facial recognition camera, and I craned my neck to get a good view. But instead, he just rang the doorbell. The doorbell? That was for visitors. I was confused. The house was supposed to be empty. A moment later, a woman in her 50s wearing a housekeeper's uniform opened the gate and smiled, welcoming Charles inside. Even Chloe was stunned, a look of complete confusion on her face. I immediately pulled out my phone and called my dad. "Dad, did you hire a housekeeper for the mansion?" He sounded a little confused himself. "Oh yeah, a woman to keep the place tidy. Mrs. Baker, in her 50s. My assistant said her son goes to your university, so it seemed like a good fit. Her son goes to my school." And just like that, it all clicked into place. Charles was the housekeeper's son. "Well, she's fired," I told my dad, "and I'm pressing charges for trespassing." By the time the police and estate security arrived, Charles's barbecue was just getting started. "Nobody move. Get on the ground," an officer yelled. "We have a report of trespassing at this residence." A few cops flashed their badges while a dozen security guards stood by, fully geared up. The students, who had never seen anything like it, were completely terrified. After a brief explanation, the lead officer walked up to Charles. "You're the one who claimed to be the owner of this property?" Charles's face went pale. He was so terrified of being exposed that he couldn't even speak. He shot a panicked, pleading look at his mother, hoping she would save him. "Don't bother," the officer said sternly. "We've already spoken to the actual owner. You have no connection to this property. Now, you can either start talking, or we can continue this conversation down at the station." That threat was all it took. His mother rushed forward. "I'll explain. I'm the housekeeper here, and Charles is my son. He just wanted to have some friends over, and I thought since the house was empty, it wouldn't be a problem. It's all my fault. Charles didn't do anything wrong." The crowd erupted. "So he's the housekeeper's son? And he had the nerve to pretend he was the Harrison heir? Wow, Charles, you've got some serious guts, I'll give you that." The nerve of that guy. Drowning in a sea of laughter and ridicule, Charles began to tremble uncontrollably before collapsing to the ground. Ava's face was ghost white. She stared at Charles on the ground, her eyes wide with horror, as if she was trying to see straight through him. The whole fiasco ended with a few students being taken to the station for questioning, while the rest of the crowd shuffled back to campus in humiliated silence. The story of how Charles Baker, the housekeeper's son, had used his mom's job to impersonate the Harrison heir spread across campus like wildfire. He became a total laughingstock. The university gave him a major demerit, but that was the least of his problems. When my dad bought the mansion, he had his assistant stock it with everything imaginable, clothes, accessories, you name it, all from high-end luxury brands. And it turned out that Charles's entire rich kid wardrobe, all the stuff he'd been using for his act, had either been stolen directly from the mansion or sold off for cash. I had my dad's assistant draw up an itemized list of everything that was missing, and then I filed a lawsuit. Charles was now on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. If he couldn't pay up, he was looking at prison. Meanwhile, Ava, who had been laying low, sent me a video through a mutual friend, saying she wanted to see me. In the video, she looked gaunt and exhausted. She was holding a small knife to her left wrist, sobbing into the camera. "James," she choked out, "you're the only one I've ever truly loved. I just want to see you one last time. If you don't come, I'll do it right here. I'm waiting for you in room 302 at the Grand Lux Hotel." I watched the video, then immediately forwarded the hotel name and room number to Charles. The moment she betrayed me, I was done with her. About 2 weeks after I arranged that little hotel reunion, my dad's assistant informed me that Charles had paid the restitution in full. I figured that was the end of it. I was pretty sure the money he used to pay me back came from Ava. She probably had no idea what the gifts I'd given her were actually worth, but Charles definitely did. Whether he scammed her or stole from her, it was no longer my problem. In the meantime, Chloe and I had gotten serious, and both our families had given us their blessing. Our parents were thrilled that we were together. The more time we spent together, the more I fell for her. We were equals, which made everything so much easier. I didn't have to constantly worry about her sensitive ego like I did with Ava. We saw the world the same way, liked the same things, and could talk for hours. Even the silences between us were comfortable. Sometimes I almost felt like Charles was sent by fate for a reason. If it weren't for him, I never would have seen Ava's true colors, and I never would have met an amazing girl like Chloe. In a weird way, I guess I owed him one. I stopped thinking about him and Ava altogether and focused on my own life. But it wasn't long before the campus was rocked by another scandal. Ava had been arrested for attempted murder. It was around 5 in the afternoon. Chloe and I were having dinner when we heard a swarm of police and ambulance sirens heading toward the campus lake. By the time we finished, we heard what had happened. Ava had stabbed Charles in broad daylight. A student saw it happen and called 911. Charles was rushed to the hospital with a knife wound in his arm, and Ava was arrested on the spot. It took a few days to piece together the full story. Apparently, when Charles had gone to that hotel room, Ava had let him in. He had planned to ask her for the money to pay me back. Naturally, she refused. So he drugged her, stole the watch right off her wrist, and took several compromising photos to use as blackmail. Charles sold the watch to pay his debt, but he burned through the cash in no time and was broke again. He was too ashamed to return to campus, but his mom told him to grow up and kicked him out. Homeless and broke, his only option was to blackmail Ava with the photos. Her family didn't have much money to begin with, but Charles refused to believe it. He even taunted her about the watch. That thing was worth hundreds of thousands, he sneered. And you can't even spot me a few grand? Ava had no idea how much the watch was really worth. When she pressed him, he finally admitted that the watch he'd stolen was worth tens of thousands of dollars. She freaked out, telling him it was a birthday present from me and demanding he give it back. Charles, of course, didn't believe her and assumed she was just trying to get out of paying him. So, in a disgusting move, he posted one of the photos on the campus forum, blurring it just enough to scare her into paying up. He had no idea that this would be the thing that finally pushed the already stressed-out Ava over the edge. When she finally cornered him by the lake, she didn't hesitate. She just lunged. If another student hadn't seen it and called for help, he probably would have been stabbed more than once. The incident became a massive scandal, far more serious than anyone could have imagined. Both Ava and Charles were expelled, and soon after, both were sentenced to prison. I went to visit Ava in jail once after that. The moment she saw me, she broke down, her face a mask of regret. Through her tears, she confessed everything. She admitted her plan for that night at the hotel was to sleep with me and secretly record it. If I still wouldn't take her back, she was going to accuse me of rape to force me to stay with her. She cried, saying she finally understood how wrong she'd been, and that what Charles did to her was karma. Then she looked at me. Charles said, "That watch you gave me, was it really worth hundreds of thousands of dollars?" I nodded. It was. And the belt I got you for Valentine's Day, the brooch for New Year's, they were all valuable. When you get out, you can sell them to get a fresh start. I paused for a moment, then added, "And by the way, I guess it's time you knew." I pulled out my phone and showed her a family photo. I'm Martin Harrison's son, the real one. That day at lunch, when I asked if you'd heard about his son, I was about to tell you everything. I was going to introduce you to my parents, but you chose him instead. But in a way, thank you. Because after you, I found the person I was meant to be with. I held up my hand, showing her the engagement ring on my finger. I'm very happy now. Ava completely lost it. She started wailing, screaming curses at Charles's name and slapping her own face. I was wrong, she sobbed. Please, just give me one more chance. We can start over. In the end, the guards had to drag her away. Looking at her, so broken and unrecognizable, I couldn't tell if I felt a sense of vindication or just a profound sense of tragedy. On the drive home, I couldn't help but think about how thin the line is between a promising college student and a convicted felon. I sighed, shaking my head at the waste of it all. Chloe squeezed my hand. "It just shows you," she said softly. "It's okay to want things, but you can't be greedy. If you let it control you, your own desire will eat you alive. Luckily, the only thing I'm greedy for in this life is you." A warmth spread through my chest. I pulled her close and kissed her on the forehead. "Yeah," I said, "it's a deal. For the rest of our lives, we'll only be greedy for each other." The story of Charles and Ava is like a mirror, reflecting the desires and struggles hidden deep inside all of us. The point of this whole mess isn't some simple lesson about right and wrong. It's a much heavier question. When life offers you a gift with a price tag you can't possibly afford, do you have the courage to walk away? Ava's tragedy was losing herself in a flood of ambition. Charles's was being consumed by the lie he was trying to live. They both looked for a shortcut, only to discover it led straight off a cliff. Their story is a reminder that true wealth isn't about what you have in the bank, but about the peace and certainty you have in your heart. The things we have to earn, step by step, with hard work and honesty, are the only things that can ever truly sustain us. Hopefully, in witnessing this tragedy, we can all gain a little clarity. Because in the end, we aren't defined by who we want to be. We're defined by what we choose to stand for every single day.